Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed Whiskey Wednesday edition, where we have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. So cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
This week, we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Tersh Blissett on the show. Welcome, Tersh, my friend. It is so good to have you on here. I remember we were chatting back in January, and we had to schedule this out, actually December. Yeah. And you're a busy guy, so it was awesome that you made some time for us today. We're excited to have you on.
Man, I appreciate it. I'm honored.
No worries, no worries. So Tersh, if for those of you, the very few of you that have not heard of Tersh, I mean, there's not too many people named Tersh that I've ever come across. So unique in that sense already, but he is the host of the Service Business Podcast, Service Business Mastery Podcast. So make sure that you check that out, number one, because he drops a ton of value in there. And we're excited to pick his brain, take out some knowledge from what he's gained from the industry. But also he is the owner of not one, but two AC companies, one more of a silent partner with TriStar, and then his main company, Service Emporer, which has just been rebranded in this last year, coming up on 1 year here now. So super excited to dive into this with you, as well as maybe even some time management strategies, since you also have 4 kids. So would love to dive into a little bit of that too. But for now, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the industry, and why HVAC was something that really drew the best out of you so far.
Cool, man. Oh, well, first, I'm honored to be on here. I appreciate it, truly. With that introduction, I have a hard time walking out the door. My head so it's inflated. I joined the industry in like 2005-ish after getting out of the Air Force, and I really, it was by happenstance. It was by mistake. I had a friend of mine who was in the industry. He really had he had a lot of extra expendable money, cash, and I went to school for engineering, mechanical engineering. I was working at a factory, at a chemical plant. And I was like, man, I need some extra money. Like, you have extra money. And here I am working at this factory doing what I'm supposed to be doing, quote unquote, supposed to be doing, and don't have any extra cash. And so I reached out to him and asked him if he could get me a job. And he ended up getting me a job. And I got a job there, and within 7 years, I was GM, and then left that place. And a couple of years later, I pretty much started my own business. I started my first HVAC company, then sold that one, started another, and merged with my business partner and created TriStar, and then started a podcast in 2017. I was getting a lot of listeners that were asking advice and stuff, just experience. How do you start a business? How do you start an HVAC company? I was like, you know what? I'm glutton for punishment. Let's do this again. So in 2018, I had every intention of starting another HVAC company, and one of my best friends at the time, he had an HVAC company and he wanted to get rid of it. So I ended up purchasing that company, and I ended up purchasing it towards the end of 2018. And so 2019 was the first full year I had that, and that was Icebound. And that's the company that we rebranded to Service Emporer in 2020, the beginning of 2020. So,
wow, there's a lot of info in that intro, and I've got a lot of spin-off questions just off of that. But let's, Evan, do we want to rapid fire some to start off?
Yeah, let's do it. So
all right.
In terms of just giving some background here, in case you're questioning this man's knowledge in any way. So you are in Savannah, Georgia.
Yep.
Population of about 170,000, I looked up.
Yep.
So not a big market, which seems to be like a reoccurring theme for us. We seem to be picking the gems out of these smaller markets, which is great. Revenue last year.
So our total revenue was 1.2 million.
Nice.
and that was going from a complete rebrand, getting rid of. We replaced our entire team as well. Really revamped. So Icebound was very much a commercial company, commercial time and material, and I knew that that's not what I wanted. I honestly would have been better off if I just started a business, because we got rid of every one of the clients that they had, and changed everything. So it was really tough. It went from $250,000 to $1.2 million company that first year of with that rebrand and everything. So
you essentially quadrupled revenue right there.
Yeah, and our goals is a pretty stout number for 2021 as well too. So we don't have any intentions of slowing down, which that's the way TriStar was. Every year we were growing between 90 and 120% year over year, and that company, even though it's a competitor, it's a high volume, low margin company. So we do property management stuff, and so we have like 6,000 properties that we manage for the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. And that one, we were growing. I mean, we're over 4 million within a couple of years.
Nice. So what is the goal for this year?
This year is 2.8.
Love it.
Yeah, and we're 100% remote too, and 100% paperless.
Yeah, that was something else that I wanted to highlight too, because I heard that on one of the shows earlier this year that you were a guest on, that it was 100% remote, which is fantastic. We will get into that. How many trucks are you running right now?
We have, we're constantly putting on new ones. We have 8, I believe.
Nice. And what's the size of the staff?
10 people.
Nice. So would that be like 8 in the vans, and then, or how many are in the trucks? How many are in the office?
Yeah, we have
office.
8. Yeah,
yeah, quote unquote.
Yeah, we have 2 more people that are onboarding here next week. But yeah, so that would leave us with 4 in the office and 8 in the vans. So
nice.
12.
Okay, cool. Love it. Awesome. Yeah, Thad, go ahead. You got the next question, buddy.
What is the title belt about you? What is okay? I promised myself today I would actually make coherent sentences, and I fucked up right at the beginning. So when you got up to get your drink, I noticed a title belt behind you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what's that about?
So that's within our coaching organization. We have every time we reach a milestone of revenue growth, we get a new title belt.
Nice.
So the first, after I initially started with them in August of 19 until the beginning of 2020, we had grown over 6 figures in growth, and so and then we'll get the $1 million belt for 2020.
Nice, that's super exciting. So obviously a coach and a mentor and a program that you're a part of, and we ourselves are huge fans of having coaches and mentors as well, on that. So what are some things, I'm assuming that you went through a full process of looking at different programs, different coaches, different mentors. I mean, feel free to plug your coach and your program as well. But what were some of the things that you looked for in a coach and a mentor program for specifically, I mean, obviously an HVAC business?
So with HVAC and in trades in general, it was the biggest thing that really, so we use CEO Warrior. That's the coaching organization that we work with. And keep in mind, like, we've worked with the others in the past, like we've worked with BDR. Whenever I first got into the industry, that's where I learned all of my stuff, was BDR. And I even did a podcast episode with Bruce Wiseman. And I love that organization as well. CEO Warrior is really very much an accountability, more process. So process driven. There's you holding each other accountable throughout the week. We have small breakout groups where we meet every Friday and hold each other accountable and really create targets for the next week, and then leverage and rewards for those. And it's not just when they mess something up, hold them accountable, but also whenever they do something good, they reach their target, they reach their goal for the week. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're so guilty of not rewarding ourselves. And that, that was a leverage that I had for a target that I had created was that I would have to give away one of my cars. I have four Mustangs that, they're right at 1,000 horsepower each. And I was going to have to give one of them away to one of the mentors within CEO Warrior. And she was going to give it to her 16-year-old granddaughter.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was
only
showing,
imagine that car be around a light pole.
Oh yeah. And she was showing me pictures of all this stuff, and like she hasn't driven, and like this is what it's going to end up looking like. And it was, it's a Fox body coupe, and I've kind of like really spent a lot of money on this car, but the reward if I reached the target was to go out of town for a weekend. And so I reached the target, thankfully, like with a week to spare, because this was like a month-long target. And I had a week to spare. And then that's whenever the bombardment of them calling me out, like, all right, we haven't seen pictures of you going out of town yet. Like, you have to reward yourself too. So they really hold us accountable for the reward aspect of it as well. And so my wife and I went to Orlando to Universal Studios for the weekend with no kids.
Nice.
So
nice. Yeah, didn't have to go far, but even still, a time without kids is most likely. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't really know what the break is like, but I can only imagine, especially with four of them running around. So it takes some time, away. But you are like the reward part of things, like, and I know a lot of people always miss that part. This idea of delayed gratification is something that a lot of people can put into their business and have a really good success by actually having this goal. Okay, well, I'm just not going to go buy it. Well, what's something that I can actually do a goal, on a reward to go after that? I know that's something that, thankfully, when I was, young as a 19-year-old, I got to experience that. I think I learned that before from my mother. I bought a car. It was a phone, like, cause I had a paper out when I was younger, right? And this delayed gratification, concept. But I had this phone that I really wanted to go buy, and I just randomly bought it, and it was, I don't know, $60. So for like a kid that's like 11 years old, 12 years old, for a phone, and it's like landlines. Oh, I'm frozen, aren't I? Telling my story all by myself.
You're good.
No, it wasn't frozen. Cool.
You're good.
I'm on a shitty internet today, so I was like, you guys are frozen. I'm like, I'm in the middle of a story. No, but so I bought it, and I thought this had this honking horn whenever somebody called, and sure enough, it did. But what my mom made me do is like, you didn't set up a goal. You can't go and just buy things like that willy nilly. Go return it. And so I'm like, fine. So I listened to my mom and I went and returned it, but. Anyways, the concept of delayed gratification. So
gotta earn it. Well, and that's something that
right?
Not enough people put enough thought into. Like, yeah, I'm going to set a goal. Like, oh, we want to do 2.8 this year. We want to do 5 this year. We want to do 7 this year. Whether that's 100,000 or million, whatever. But they don't put any thought into, okay, well, why is it that you actually want to do that? Mm-hmm. What is going after that goal going to cost you? Right. That's something that not a lot of people put enough time into. And then what's the reward for hitting it? And what's the cost if I don't hit it? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that. I love it. It's really one of my mentors, back several years now. His name's Jesse Cole. He's a friend of mine. And he's, if you've ever heard of Savannah Bananas or the guy in the yellow tux, he wears a yellow tuxedo everywhere he goes. And so that's what he's known for. But whenever I told him, I said, this is a couple of years ago. I can't remember what it might've been a year ago. We were meeting together at the stadium, and I said, yeah, my long-term target is 10. I want to do $10 million. No, I'm sorry. I want to do $5 million in 10 locations. And he said, why though? And I was like, I don't know, just so I can say that I did it, I guess. and he was like, yeah, but I mean, what kind of leverage is that? Like when the going gets tough, is that really just because, is that going to be good enough for you? Like to just keep pushing forward? And I was like, yeah, touche. I get it. I mean, whenever the going gets tough, it's to prove to myself is more often than not. Like that's really what pushes me. I'm not the type of person that typically needs a lot of leverage, but when it gets really hard, like there's got to be some leverage there somewhere that you're gonna have to fall back on.
Totally. Well, and are you trying to push yourself to hit a number? Or is there a pull? Right. And that's the idea, is you need something that's compelling enough that it's going to be pulling you, that you don't have to force yourself to do it. It's not taking up willpower, taking up energy to go and do it. There's something bigger that you've attached that number to that is going to pull you out of bed in the morning.
Very true. Very true. I love that concept, because there's times whenever it's like, man, I'm just stuck in a rat race. Like, but to have something there to pull you out of just the minutia of the blah.
Well, and it's true. Like, you're running a business, you can get the minutia of the blah, right? Like it's there. Like everybody says, I asked a question actually the other day on my Facebook wall. What are some things about, a couple words, what's it mean to be an entrepreneur? And I mean, there's a lot of answers. So maybe somebody said this and maybe they didn't, but it is really doing those small, mundane, routine tasks that you really don't like doing is part of also running a business and being an entrepreneur. It's not all this glam that everybody sees in this lifestyle. I mean, yeah, that's a result of getting to that part, but you've got to push and pull yourself to getting there, which is, a lot of people don't see the underside. It's like an iceberg, right? You look at an iceberg, well, only 10% of the iceberg is showing, not the 90% below. It's the same thing with, the goals and getting there and having the success, right? So people hear, yeah, you've got 4 Mustangs. Cool. Look at the hard work that you had to do to get there,
right.
Which is part of it as well. So to shift gears a little bit, I want to ask a little bit about the 100% remote, 100% paperless part, because I know that, that really piqued me. Evan and I, we're both 100% remote. We're mainly paperless because we are remote as well. So how, when you think about an HVAC business specifically, for us in, the digital marketing space, it's a lot easier because, well, everything we do is digitalness online. So people, yeah, it makes sense for you guys. But running an HVAC business, 100% remote, what are some, I guess, some trials that you've had with that, some learning curves, but what are some of the successes, and how would you go about implementing that into your business?
Oh man, we could go for hours on this topic.
Hey man, well, I have 7 ounces of whiskey that I brought with me in a fridge full of beer, so let's get into her.
So it's really with Icebound, I knew that I wanted to be remote. I knew that from the get-go, that was the conversation that I was having. Like everything that we did, every process that we implemented, it was like, is this going to take us away from being remote, or do we have to do something to make this happen or work better in order for it to stay remote? And there's been temptations to let's just go get an office somewhere and do that. The temptation has been there, but we've just said no. We want to stay remote. Part of it is the reducing overhead expenses so we can pay our guys more, because we pay our team a lot more than what a lot of our competitors do. Our average HVAC tech is making $35 an hour, whereas around here it's 20-ish an hour is pretty average for HVAC service techs. And we've got guys making 35, 40, 45 an hour too. So, we've got some high paid guys, and we're able to do that because of having low overhead expenses related to an office and that type of stuff. But the other stuff, it's very much like CRM. We knew we needed a CRM that was cloud-based, so we went with Service Titan. Well, it's a little bit more expensive. If you utilize all of the automation features and everything that goes along with Service Titan, it does away with 1 or 2 office staff at least, and so we've done that. Our communication, we communicate via Slack, and we're actually moving over to Teams because we use Microsoft 360. Our information management, our data management, it's all attached to our website. So our team can sign in to their online portal, and they're able to see all of our policies and procedures. If anything's updated, they have access to it immediately. So it's even better than having an office, because you have to go back to an office to physically get the paper copy of a policy or procedure or look it up. Whereas ours is all instantly. They just sign it into their portal and get access to it. And we're able to do that because we use Microsoft 365 or 360, whatever it is. And it's just every decision that we make it really revolves around, can we stay remote if we move this route?
No, and that's Microsoft. It is Microsoft 360, by the way.
Yeah.
So at least I hope so. I mean, I don't know. We use Google for a lot of our stuff and a lot of Google Docs because it's all in one file. It's all remote and it's there. We always find that there's an issue with Google Docs and Microsoft Word documents and kind of converting them back and forth. So plus some of our team likes to work in Google Docs versus Microsoft Word. So anyways, I forgot the point of my question. But Evan, you probably have one.
Yeah, no, the thing that I really love that you mentioned there was just having that central focus. And what is our filter? What is going to filter down? Every decision we make is going through this one primary question. Is it going to move us closer to or further from our goal? Right? We're working remote, period, end of story.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. And that's your filter. And I love that. And not enough people put thought into what is the primary focus of our business. Right? Is it pure growth? Cool. Well, then every decision needs to be filtered through that. Is what we are doing right now moving us closer to or further from that?
Yeah, very true.
There was an old Darren Hardy interview that he did back when he was publisher of Success Magazine with the lady from Biggest Loser. And she used the analogy of the Easter egg hunt that her mother would give her when she was a child. Right. And you're moving closer to, you're getting warmer, right? You're getting colder. And that's how she then transformed that into Biggest Loser. Every decision you were making was either moving you closer to or further from your goal, right? Having that filter and that solar focus. I love it. It's fantastic.
Well, let's ask this question, Tersh. What is the primary focus of your business?
The primary focus is definitely, well, it's nothing that we've talked about so far, and it's client experience. And every decision hinges off of how are we able to provide a superior client experience for our team and for our clients, because our team is our first client, first of all. So the service experts and everybody that's out in the field, that's our first customer or client. And so making sure that they have the best experience possible. And then the ways that they can in turn provide a superior experience to our clients, because they're the ones who actually come in contact with them. And it's hard to say, let's give everybody the Ritz-Carlton experience if they've never experienced a Ritz-Carlton. So we do our best to give them the Ritz-Carlton experience, so then in turn they can give the Ritz-Carlton experience to our clients. Totally.
Number one thing you can do for customer service is take care of your staff.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, 100%. So with that, and this was another podcast that I had listened to that you were a guest on, but you had some interesting philosophies around hiring that I found fascinating. So I was wondering if you could walk us through a little bit of your hiring process, what it is that you look for in someone that you're hiring. One of them being not necessarily HVAC experience, which I really loved, and your philosophy around always seeking out talent.
Yeah, we're very personality driven, and making sure that we mesh each other well. And I don't like doing a quote unquote personality exam, like a disc evaluation or anything like that.
Right.
So something that we've done, and we've done it for a while now, and it's always fun to watch. We really started focusing on it here lately. In 2020, we really started focusing on it more so. And that is, we do group interviews now, and we do them on Zoom.
Nice.
And and I haven't even shared, I don't even think I've shared this on my podcast. But one thing about our hiring practices, it changes constantly. We do have, of course, I don't have one right here close to me, but we have little business cards that have a QR code that you scan it and and it gets you into the top of the funnel. And so you're constantly like, I met a guy and he was a drive-through at McDonald's, and he was he was the one that actually took the money, not the one that gave you the food, and sung. I mean, he was a singer, and he's every time you're coming up to him, he's singing, and then you're leaving, he's singing, and we're like, hey, that's I love that personality. And we gave him the card, and he got into the top of the funnel, and we did interview him, but unfortunately he didn't work out because you still have to have some mechanical aptitude, and he just didn't have any. But we have a guy that was a radio DJ. He was a disc jockey and came on board with us. And actually he started doing phones for us. He answered our phones, and it was really cool. I mean, loved him. Mark the Shark is his name. And then and then he had the opportunity to go run 3 stations, which was his lifelong dream. And I was like, look, man, I got wind of that. And I was like, look, man, if you don't take the job, I'm going to fire you. And so he was like, all right, fine, I'll take the job. And so he took the job, and he's still doing it. I mean, and that's, that was the beginning. That was in 2019, and he's still doing that, and he loves it. We talk to each other all the time, constantly. But yeah, with the Zoom events, it's great because people come on thinking they're going to do a one-on-one Zoom call. Well, they get on there and there's 15 or 20 people on the Zoom. They're like, oh shit. I don't know about all this. But it's great because this is the first step of the hiring process. And first off, we want to see how everybody interacts with each other. And second off, it's that Zoom call. It's going to have a CSR. It's going to have an inside salesperson, an outside salesperson, a HVAC service tech, a plumbing service tech, or electrical service expert, or apprentice, or somebody who has no idea about any of it and just wants to get into the industry. And so it's not particularly like your position. There's not 20 of your position that are applying for this job that are interviewing at that time. But so we just round robin, and I ask 4 questions every time. And the first 2 questions are really, I just make them up as I go. It's pretty much. But the second 2 are always, what makes you stand out in a crowd of people? And then when you think of your childhood, what does it smell like? And people are like, what in the hell are you talking about? Are you serious right now? And then you get the most common answer that I get is grandma's cooking. And that's just what people say, that and the sea, because they're in the ocean. And because we're remote, we are interviewing people from all over the country too, because we have inside sales opportunities and office opportunities. So we're hiring we're interviewing people that can be all over the country. And we've done a great job with this. I mean, it's like we are having these events twice a week, and we're having between 15 and 20 people on each one of the events. So it's right now we can just pick who we want as much as the market will hold it.
Well, then that's a powerful thing. I'm glad that you kind of explained the philosophy and how kind of the interview goes, because I did have a question on that, but you asked and answered. So, but like the aspect of just putting it reminds me of our Cutco cutlery, the old Vector interviews where you show up and it's, as group interview, right? On that, but you did say you kind of make questions up as you go, and they're almost kind of like a random question. So we have a random question generator. And it's already been queued up. So for you, the random question of the day is, what says the most about a person?
What says the most about a person?
Yes.
To me, okay. Is this in a face-to-face interaction, or?
It can be whatever you want.
Okay.
The question is, what says the most about a person?
Well, I could tell you a couple of different things. in a pre-COVID world, their handshake says a lot about them. But then when you're having a conversation with someone, the eye-to-eye contact and their body language really says a whole lot about them to me. I mean, so I went to after I started, it was TriStar. After I started TriStar, I went to school for psychology, industrial psychology. And the whole reason for that was I wanted to understand the reason why my guys thought the way they did, just the whole thought process. I wasn't worried about any kind of paper on a wall or anything. And that was my whole thing, was like body language, and even getting into the NLP, like neural linguistic programming and that type of stuff. It's just, I love to watch people. I'm a people watcher too. So like I could sit at the mall and just sit on a park bench, and just, I could be that creeper guy that's just watching everybody walking by. Yeah.
People watching is a fun thing. I'm not gonna lie. I love watching people. And then, but the next level of watching people is just making up stories about them. When you're sitting there and just talking about them, right? So my mother asked a question, and Evan, I'm going to throw this to you first because I don't want to answer it. So right off the bat. So
number one fan.
What would be your answer to the smell of your childhood?
Well, the first answer I thought of was crappy diapers, but that's just because
that's your kid's childhood.
No, that was mine too. My niece is 3 years younger than me, so grew up with a little sister that was my niece. No, grandma's apple pie, definitely. Yeah. She baked everything homemade, and like she made her own pasta. Like it was phenomenal. I remember her laying it out on her second bed, and I wasn't allowed to sleep in there or play in there while the pasta was drying. I had to go play in the living room, and
that's awesome.
Well, that's funny. I actually don't. My answer, I was just kind of being a little bit of a dick. That's how I can kind of be. But mine is the smell of the outdoors. We got forced out of the house growing up to go outside and play. Go ride your bikes, come home when the street lights come on. I mean, different time, different town. I mean, our town was like 5,000, 6,000 people, but we were always outside as much as possible. Even at grandma's house, was forced to go outside, and we were, outside from sun up to sundown. So that would definitely be the smell of my childhood. That's for sure.
Love it.
Yeah, kick you out, lock the door, and tell you if you're thirsty, drink out the water hose.
Exactly right. So it's funny. I volunteer, and I was filling up some water bottles for hockey out of literally like a garden hose. And this one kid was like, "Oh, gross! You're filling our water bottles up with the hose." And he started freaking out. I'm like, "Well, when you're outside playing, do you ever drink out of the garden hose?" He's like, "Oh yeah, all the time." I'm like, "Well, it's the exact same thing." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then hose, right?
That's some of the best water anywhere. It's like, it's probably filled with all kinds of bacteria, but man, you drink out of a water hose, and it's like,
Add some extra flavor, right?
Extra flavor, gives you some bacteria, keeps your gut health strong. That's what I say about the whiskey every Wednesday when I drink it.
Exactly. It's certain, I don't know what, but it's delicious.
Awesome.
Love it. Well, let's get this back. I had a question. I can't remember it now, but
it's okay. I got one.
Okay.
So we kind of talked a little bit about, your hiring decision and, around your guys and bringing people on board. So what are some of the decision-making steps that you look at in terms of projecting for the busy season? Obviously where you're at, air conditioning is a big one, down in Georgia, not so much in, air conditioning and heating in the winter, although they probably do have them. But what are some things that you're looking for? Yeah, kind of, sort of, right? It's not a huge thing, but it's there.
Only when the random drunken Canadian brings a snowstorm down.
Yeah, exactly, right, to Texas. Just as a side note, I feel bad for everybody that's down in Texas right now. I mean, like I have some friends that are on the feed, and they've been without power, and some of them are like 2-3 days. I know that us Canadians and thanks Lewis for pointing this out, that Canadians are making fun of, not being prepared for winter, but really, well, I mean, but all of our infrastructure is designed specifically for winter and snow and everything that goes around that. Where Texas, you're not designed for that. So it's something that it's a freak event, of nature down there. So hopefully everybody is safe. Hopefully everybody is hanging in down there. So I did want to shout some love down to our friends in Texas. Hope y'all are doing all right. So back to my question was, preparing for the busy season, what are some things that you're doing to gear up to take advantage of that, to not let anything fall between the cracks?
Biggest thing is just it sucks because if you're just thinking about it now, it's probably too late.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to prepare for the next year, because you need maintenance programs. That's the biggest thing, is you need to have work when it's slow, during the slow season, and just hiring beyond what's needed. So our guys, one of the biggest reasons why we have so many service experts that are applying for jobs with us is our internal team. They all of their friends, the guys that they meet at supply houses or guys they've worked with in the past, they're reaching out to their friends and saying, or whenever they're talking in small talk, it's just, man, we're busy. We're all working as much as we want to. We're working 40 hours a week. If we want to work more, then we can work more. Whereas they've gone a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks without a paycheck. And so then they're like, okay, we want a job. But also, what also helps is that we give a bird dog fee to our internal team. So if anybody gets hired, then they get paid $1,000 if they're a service tech. It's a little bit less if it's an apprentice or an office person, but if they're a skilled tradesman with experience, then they get $1,000. So then they're more likely to recommend good quality help. But it's a catch-22 a little bit. It's $250 whenever they get hired, $250 after 90 days, and then $500 at the end of the year. That way they can call on their, that person, because they have to hold them accountable. So our team holds each other accountable by doing that. But hiring now before it actually gets busy is the best thing, but you have to have work or capital to be able to keep those people paid, even though it's not a demand time of year. So you either have to have a lot of capital to just float the people and pay them while they're not working, or you can train them. We do about a month's worth of onboarding training anyways. But then the other thing is to have the maintenance agreements or work coming in that allows you to be able to keep those guys busy, guys and gals.
Yeah, cross training is such a big thing, to be able to handle that, so they can do multiple different tasks. So, huge thing.
Yep. Well, and it helps the other trades too. Having multiple trades, that really helps out also. We don't have a lot of cold weather. Low 40s maybe is about the coldest we're experiencing right now. But we still have some pipes that are busting, that are getting into the 30s and 20s at night. But so if you have the ability to cross train those HVAC guys into doing some plumbing work, and then that's very helpful.
Totally. Now we got a client down in Louisiana that they're big into electrical, which is able to float them through the winter season because they don't have a winter normally. Yeah. Obviously,
right.
It's a little bit different, but
2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's an amazing thing to have those other opportunities available, whether that's commercial, whether that's electrical, whether that's plumbing. You got to be able to.
And we do a lot of commercial too. We do about half and half. Whenever we first started out, when Icebound first started out, it was a predominantly, I would say probably 90% commercial company. Wow. And so now we are 60% residential and 40% commercial. But
So what was the drive behind that shift?
it was me. I wanted to do residential. I knew my avatar, the target avatar that I was going after, and while we love our commercial clients to death, like we have great, amazing commercial clients, our target has been the affluent residential owner occupied. Whereas TriStar, we do a lot of property management. And so it's going to be non-owner occupied. You know, you have to catch 12 service calls in a day to make the money because it's going to be a low profit job. And we know that up front. Whereas with Service Emporer, 4 calls is the max a service expert's going to get. So a service technician won't get more than 4 service calls a day because they're going to spend time there and they're going to really focus on that house and making sure that entire encapsulation is taken care of. So it's completely different mindsets between the two businesses.
Totally. So in terms of that and knowing your customer avatar, because that's not something that's instinctively taught within HVAC school.
Oh.
So
I'd
I'm
probably
curious,
say 75% of the people that I chat with have no idea what an ideal customer avatar is.
not even close.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong if you don't know that. I don't want to make you feel bad by that. It's just it's not taught.
Anyway.
Our goal here is to make you feel like shit because you don't know what an avatar is, and it's not.
Although I heard they're coming out with Avatar 2. I
can't wait. I can't wait.
Anyways, we still neither can I. I thought the first one was. I actually recently put it on high def, and I'm like, man, if this was in 3D, it'd blow my mind. But anyways, back to Evan's question. Sorry.
Get some psychedelics in you and watch that.
Oculus goggles.
I was going to say the smell of my childhood was marijuana, but I don't know if my mother would have appreciated that.
Late childhood.
Was it your marijuana or your mom's?
Okay, just disclosure that. Late childhood, more so late teens, and it was all mine. All mine, not hers.
It is legal here, so my kids might have a little bit different perspective on that. In creating that customer avatar, was that something you learned as a general manager when you were doing that? Was that something you learned through CEO Warrior? Was that something you learned later on just on your own? Like, how did you define what it is that your ideal customer was, and how did you decide on that as a residential luxury, higher end, more affluent customer versus your everyday runway?
Oh yeah. So I would definitely attribute this to Fred Kennedy. He was the guy that owned the business that I started at, and he trained me. He spent a lot of time with me, teaching me, mentoring me, and really helping me out with that. And he really is the one that focused on me being, where, like, what an avatar was. Like, he learning to say no, which is really hard for me because I just want to say yes to everybody and get everybody taken care of. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that was one of the big things. BDR, that coaching organization really helped me out too. Now, don't get me wrong, CEO Warrior, they harp on it all the time. So this is something we're talked about all the time. We use a company in the US called Melissa Data, and they can give you so much information for like $500 on your client. And it's really crazy how much information they'll give you. And you run that report based on the clients that you've served in the past. And that really will tell you what your current avatar is. And then you can say, okay, that's the avatar I want to stick with, or do I want to go towards a different avatar? And if I do, then what do I need to do to make that happen? Because once you can't track, you can't fix it unless you track it. So if you don't know what your current avatar is by running some sort of report like Melissa Data or any other program out there, then you don't know where to start to fix it. And it may be a situation to where, like, I say I want the affluent clientele, but my actions show that that's not really what I want. I really want to catch 12 service calls a day per service tech. And I really want to have an average ticket of, $150, $200. And that's going to lean towards away from that affluent client. Like, whereas, if you're going to catch 4 service calls a day and have an average ticket of $800 a service ticket, if you want to move that direction, you can move that direction. But if you don't, then don't. There's McDonald's is a very wealthy company, and they are all about the value meal and the cheapness. Nothing wrong with that, if that's what you want to go after, you just have to make sure that that's what you're marketing towards. And when you once you know your avatar, and it's so much more than just knowing who you're targeting. It's reaching out to guys like you and saying, okay, these are my avatar. This is who I wanted to do business with. Okay, so you need to stay away from these colors, and you need to work towards these colors. And when your logo, you need to stay away from yellow because that's super happy color. And when they call you, they're not happy, they're pissed off, they're fretting, and so you really have to understand the colors, or have somebody else who's on your marketing team that understands colors and fonts. And don't put somebody as your homepage image that is not your avatar.
Yeah, no, 100%. And well, I was going to make a note of that time, because that was some golden stuff about colors. And like, you talk about, logos and brand. I mean, you obviously went through the rebrand. I mean, it's almost like starting a new company, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We lost and gained about 20% of our clients during that process. So
with that process of going through that rebrand, I mean, there's some guys that are likely watching this, like, well, I'm thinking about rebrand. I've had conversations with people that are thinking about a rebrand. Some people even say 10 years, rebrand your company. I'm not saying that's yes or no, on that. But what are some tips or some things to think about? Obviously, logo and color, one of them. But what are some other things that somebody should think about before officially doing their rebrand?
Biggest thing is look at the market. Look at every vehicle that rides by you during the day. Do you have 100? If you rode by 100 vans rode past you, how many of them are red and blue? Like, and that's the biggest thing, right? And not only that, like, when you're competing with every eyeball on the road. And so it's not just the people who are like looking for air conditioning vans. You're competing with UPS, you're competing with FedEx, you're competing with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. You're competing with every vehicle that rides by that has a logo on it. So make sure that you stand out from all of that. Make sure you stand out of the crowd. And then after that, create your brand guideline and stick to it. Anybody that does any of your marketing, does anything to do with anything, make sure that they have your brand guideline and you adhere to it hardcore.
So somebody might hear brand guideline. What the fuck is that? Seriously, like, no, but like a legit question. Like, there's like, there's going to be people that are out there that are like, what's a brand guideline? So in your words, what is a brand guideline, and what should people put into it?
So it's totally they range. We recently redid ours, and a buddy of mine, Scott Oberg, he sent me his, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I love that brand guideline. And that's one of the great things about using any kind of peer-to-peer coaching organization is when you have a question about something like that, and you have 200 or 700 other business owners, and you can ask a question and get a legit answer, more so even than Facebook groups, because Facebook groups will give you some stuff, but you don't know if they're setting you up for failure or not. But
do home advisor, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, it's on that note, I have a friend of mine who is killing it on Home Advisor.
There are some out there. It's not impossible. 98% of people. Yeah.
Right. So with the branding guideline, it's basically anything to do with your brand, colors, your logo. So if you're going to have a white logo, so our logo is basically an orange with a silver circle around it, orangish, golden lion with a silver circle around it. And then our font is black with silver around it, almost a white color. But if it's not going to be the colored logo and it has to be a white logo, then you need to make sure that it looks exactly like this and it's sized exactly like this. And so how far away from the edge of the page it can be, so that way it doesn't mesh with the edge of a page or get cut off. If it's going to be an all black font, then so you have those three options. That's why we have three options: is the colored, the black, and the white. and then where it can be located, how close something else can be to it. So if you've ever had like a major manufacturer, say like Train or Carrier, and they've given you a branding guideline and said, hey, this is our logo. It can't be this color. It has to be this color. It can't be, an orange. It's got to be this red orange for Train or whatever. And they'll give you the exact color code for it. This is the exact font for it. Nothing can be within, 3 pixels of it or whatever. It has that guideline of nothing can be so close to it. This cannot be at the top left of the page. It has to always be at the bottom right of the page or the bottom center of the page or something like that. Like some people get that specific. If you're going to use the background colors, like we have a bright orange background that's the top of our vans, and it's a very specific design. You can't just use any random old orange. You have to use that specific one. And we have the EPS file and the AI file, the .ai file that's attached with it too.
Sorry, I was cheersing Ron Davis. He said that the thing I know you asked us about about StreamYard, and this is what I love about StreamYard. Just pour a little bourbon and then tag you in it, right? So this is the cool things that you can do with it. By the way, if anybody wants to trial out StreamYard, we have a referral link as well. You actually get $10 off if you use our referral link.
That's what's up.
And we also get a free month when you
That's
use it.
even better.
So it's a win-win. So I actually don't have that handy, but I will drop that in our show notes for anybody who is obviously watching this live. Obviously, when you watch it later, you won't get or hear it later on our platforms wherever you subscribe to your podcasts. Well, you won't get to see it. But
yeah, Ron is the man. He's in my small breakout group
nice.
On Fridays. So
nice. Well, on the whole links and everything, we haven't shared yet where people can find you. So we've got a couple websites. Obviously, we want to promote our show guests as much as possible. So the first one is serviceemporer.com. I was spelling it the other way, but Grammarly wasn't picking it up, so it's Emperor.
Good news is I own the other domain as well. And it redirects to it.
Nice. That is good for inept people like myself who cannot spell. Grammarly is my savior. So that is one, serviceemporer.com. We obviously have your podcast. We mentioned that a little bit earlier, servicebusinessmastery.com. That's servicebusinessmastery.com. If you have any questions for Tersh, you can reach out to him on the big 3. That is Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It is mainly just facebook.com, Instagram.com, LinkedIn.com /Tersh Blissett, except for Facebook has a dot between your names. So Tersh.Blissett. But of course, those that are listening later on when we're on our shows, we'll have those in the show notes for you. So
just search Tersh Blissett. There's not many of them.
No.
Pretty all right.
Well, let's see what
I take
happens
up like 4 or 5 pages. If you just search Tersh most of the times, it's at least 1 or 2 pages of it.
Yeah. Your number 1 is your LinkedIn. Your number 2 is your Instagram. Your number 3 is serviceemporer.com.
Which is wild because I spend so little time on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's
move, man.
It's good. Anybody that's in the SEO world knows that they have a bunch of leak juice all behind it. So it's anything that's on there, it always shows up. Them Facebook, always up there. So
in regards to the podcast, I did want to ask you this before we get to our new patented last question. In the podcast, what was the motive behind starting it, the Service Business Mastery podcast? What have been the greatest lessons or questions that you've asked in it? And what have been the funniest moments or worst guess?
Oh man, that's loaded.
Do you have those written down? Because I think I need you to ask them one by one.
No, I think I got it. So Brian Orr, great friend of mine. He's a great human being. If you don't know him, you need to get to know him. He is the host of the HVAC School podcast.
Yeah.
And I was on his show a handful of times, and people began asking a lot about business and like just business questions and stuff. And myself and Ruth King were on the show. Well, Ruth King, she is a coach and does a lot of coaching. Well, I think she actually has a podcast too, but Brian and I got to talking, and he was like, you know, if you will do the show, I'll produce it for like a year or so. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I did it, and he coached me through the whole thing. And if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, or my website page, my original season is being re-released so that I can get the transcriptions for it, and for SEO content purposes. But you'll hear Brian. The very first episode was just released, and it's crazy how different I sounded, you know, in 2017 versus now. But Brian's the reason why I really got onto the podcast, and he's really the reason why I stuck with it, because between him and Britt Ridley and Billy Noth, they have the Tool Pros podcast. Then Bill Spohn, he had HVAC Building Science. Zach Ciota, they had the HVAC Shop Talk podcast. They still have that. And all of those guys, we all collabed together a lot, and we did back then. And that's really what got me started with the podcast. But and a lot of it, the interaction with the audience was a big deal. I mean, it really helped out a lot. The questions that were being asked. And the thing about it is I'm the first to tell you that I'm not the coach. I'm not the guy that knows all this stuff. I just bring coaches on. I bring the experts onto the show, and really I learned from them. And the thing that I've loved the most is it's given me a point where I can have one-on-one conversations and contact with people that I never would have had contact with before in the industry. And I can talk to people that it opens up so many doors. Like the people who I'm just, I never in a million years would have been able to have conversations with these people, especially having these people tear apart my business personally and tell me how to fix things. And I wouldn't have had that without the podcast. So that's one of the great things about the podcast. One of the what was the second one? The biggest implement.
Some of the greatest lessons.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I kind of rolled that into it. Yeah, that's one of the greatest lessons is the podcast has been able to open me up to really having conversations and meeting people, and in turn forming intimate relationships with very awesome people. A guy by the name of Mike McAllowitz, we became very good friends. He's an author of a book called Profit First. And then he actually added myself and Julie into Fix This Next. So that's one of his more recent books, Fix This Next. And so having that relationship, you know, directly came from, he's been on the show several times, and it's the fear of public speaking. That was one of the big things. Like, so I had a huge fear. Like, I couldn't talk in front of 10 people before. And one of the things that I did in 2017 was I joined as many boards as I could, like chamber organizations. And then I eventually became the president of the Small Business Chamber. I was on the executive board for Leukemia Lymphoma Society, on the executive board for Buy Local Savannah. And so then I was getting up in front and talking in front of, you know, potentially hundreds of people, you know, once a month. And so it really made me focus on speech impediment and also the fear of public speaking and stuff like that. So that was really cool part of it too.
Love it. And then hilarious moments or worst guess without naming names. Exactly.
I've had some very dry guests where I've had to really pull information out of them. And Michael Aguilera, he's one of the owners of CEO Warrior. He's a personal mentor of mine, and he has the thing about him is when he come on the show, and the feedback he gives me about my show in general is the fact that I need to make sure that I'm very attentive and I'm pulling information out of people, and not just be a friendly conversation, which is great to have a great conversation. Don't get me wrong. But I need to make sure I'm highlighting things, because I may not have missed what was said in the conversation, but someone else listening may have missed it. And so that's, there's been a couple of conversations that were very dry, but I still tried my best to pull conversation out of it and information out of it. And I released it thinking, I might lose subscribers from this episode. This episode sucks. And then I get like 50 emails from, oh, I loved that episode. And I'm like, are you serious? I waited like 8 months to release it because I just thought it was horrible. And so I've had a couple of those. And I won't lie to you, I have coming up on 60 episodes that have been recorded and haven't been released yet. And there's a couple of them in there that suck pretty bad. And I'm just like, should I release this or not? Maybe I'll release it at 2:00 in the morning and then release one right afterwards, like at midnight. So it kind of gets hidden.
Although with your same logic, though, you thought ones that were going to be shitty turned out to be amazing, right? So
yeah.
Sometimes you just never know. So I guess as you said, the ball's on us to go live with our episodes, not even pre-record. So
yeah.
But here's a lesson within that. When it comes to social media, fucking post it. Who gives a shit what it looks like? Who gives a shit?
That's true.
Right? Like, just post it. Post content nonstop, all day, every day. I just had a call with a client today, and I was like, look, you need to set guidelines for your staff. This is the kind of pictures we're looking for. Take them. Yep. I don't care if they're crappy. I don't care if they don't look good. Just take them, and we're going to post them, because content is king. That's it.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, 100%. And like you even said that about your show too, right? Like back when you listened to your first season, you're like, man, I've came a long ways, right? Like we'll be the first to say that when we first started doing this, it was Evan and I sitting on Facebook Live, drinking whiskey, talking about our business. And it was just shitty. Like, it really wasn't that great, but it paved the way to get to where we are now. You don't actually figure out how to do something until you actually go and do something, right? Too many people are worried about making it perfect.
Yeah. You can't release it. You can't wait until it's perfect to release it, because then it just never gets released.
Exactly. And that just sits there. The idea just sits in your brain, and it just festers and it stews, and then you never do anything with it, right? Like,
I love what you said there about the material, the marketing material. We have a channel in our Slack that's nothing. It's marketing. It's called #marketing. And anytime they see anything that could possibly go in a marketing page, picture or anything, they post a picture of it, and it's like all day long, ding, 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 ding. And every time they put a yard sign out, they put, they're taking pictures of it and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Having an ad swipe file is a huge thing, massively huge thing. So as we wrap things up, Tersh, one last question here for you. What is one question that you wished people would ask you more?
But they don't.
But they don't. Right. Sorry, I forgot that part.
Probably what's the best way to say this? What's the best way? What is the driving motivation behind business, serve the podcast, having, multiple HVAC, plumbing, electrical business, having multiple podcasts, releasing YouTube videos, and constant, like every week, multiple episodes on YouTube and Facebook, constantly creating, figuring out Zapier and how am I posting 100 times in a month, versus having to manually go in and do that stuff. Like, what's the driving factor behind that?
So let me ask you the question then. What is the driving factor behind having multiple businesses, multiple podcasts, YouTube videos, multiple episodes, Facebook, and Zapier, man after my heart, loves it, loves Zapier. So what's your driving factor behind doing all of that?
Biggest thing is my wife, Julie, and obviously the obligatory kids comment too, but no, my kids are awesome. I love my kids to death. She
Julie
actually
comes first.
Yes, Julie does come first, and she has them at soccer practice now. We have 3 boys and a girl, and the 3 boys they play travel ball, and so it's a constant. Like every afternoon at 3:00, 4:00, they're gone to soccer until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then every weekend. Sometimes I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and Julie's in Jacksonville, Florida. So, I mean, we could literally be 2 states away from each other on the weekend. But yeah, so the kids are awesome. But yeah, Julie's definitely the reason that everything happens and everything kind of, honestly, even with the business, she's such a huge impact in the business as well.
Nice. I love that answer because I know that Evan and I share that exact same value, that everything we do for our business, but also for our clients, is for our families and their families as well. So I'll be the first to thank you, Tersh, for taking the time out of your day. I never want to, there's so much more to unpack, here. There definitely is. I mean, we can honestly just end this, record an episode and put it out later, but we don't do that. So we'll have you back on for nothing like there's anything wrong with that. It's just our MO. We'd love to have you back on for another episode. So again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to chat with us here. Obviously, if anybody has any questions and follow up for Tersh, you have his contact info in the show notes. We will put that there. So again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I love what y'all are doing too. Like I love your backstory and about you and what y'all have going on, which is awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, join our Facebook group. Facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. That URL one more time, Facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one little golden nugget of information from this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, what we ask is you introduce this show to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all we ask. Introduce it to one person in your contacts list so they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.